As a freshly graduated architect, I was made to believe that 12,000 rupees per month is all that I was worthy of. But academic records of 95%, all India GATE rank of 24 showed a different trend. So I had made some mistakes in the choices that I had made. That is when I decided to take matter into my own hands. And obviously I must have made the right decision then, because today I am getting revenues of 50 times that amount, which is a massive difference in what I was and what I am now. We will skip the few initial years of evolution and focus at the point at which chimpanzees and apes evolved into the earliest known forms of hominids. It is widely believed that these hominids initially emerged from parts of African continent. These few million years of evolution enabled these hominids, or the early form of humans, to stand straight, grab objects, and other evolutionary features. As our ancestors traveled from the African savannas to the Russian wilderness, from the tropical forests to the deserted hinterlands, they came across the beauty and the destructive force of Mother Nature. They decided to document their experiences inside their dwellings or caves in the form of paintings, which can be found at certain places like Altamira, Spain, and Bhimbetka in Bhopal, India. Over a period of time, as our ancestors grew slightly more intelligent, maybe they wanted to document the daily observations of the moon and the sun and the stars. Some of these examples can be found at Stonehenge and Newgrange, which I'll explain now. The Stonehenge is a prehistoric monument located in Salisbury in southern England. On every summer solstice, the sun rises behind Heel Stone in the northeast part of the horizon, and its first rays shine into the heart of the Stonehenge. There are other important pits near the Stonehenge which were supposed to have measured the alignment of the other heavenly bodies. Roughly 600 kilometers away from Stonehenge, in Ireland we have the tumulus or passage grave of Newgrange. This monument is aligned with the sun of the winter solstice, the day on which there is the least amount of light on earth, and on every winter solstice morning the sun passes right through the exterior point and reaches up to the interiormost chambers. It is also a wonderful fact that this monument is aligned with the 8.5-year-old cycle of the planet of Venus, as has been shown here. The purpose of this video is first of all to make the young architects aware of the reasons why the market is exploiting them and punishing them like never before. The second purpose is also to motivate the young students of architecture that they can also achieve, no matter which college, which part of the country you come from. You can achieve extreme amounts of success if you make the right choices at the right point of time. And third, there are actual examples which I have provided in this video of my own students, because I have myself trained them, so I can only take the examples as to be 100% true. You will find a PDF linked in the description that you must follow in order to be able to correlate with what is being discussed. You must have noticed that I am heavily investing in maps and understanding of these maps, because for example, if you are reading about America, you need to know the history, how America became such a large country by itself, the Louisiana Purchase and so on. But for example, you see the map of Manhattan, Lower Manhattan, and then you are seeing the landmarks have been marked out in Lower Manhattan, and then also I have mentioned the movie The Sully there. Why? Because you must have seen the movie, so it helps you correlate with whatever you have seen, and then it helps you remember easily, okay, this was this story behind that location or landmark. So that is how I establish the context. So storytelling is very important for establishing a context, which helps you remember things very easily for at least the next 10 years. So 3 months down the line, 2 months down the line, 30 days down the line, if you have an exam, it doesn't matter. You're going to remember that for 10 years. Certain points I would like to highlight which will again help you remember. First, I will start with the precision of the pyramids. Again, similarly, if you remember, I was discussing Newgrange, tumulus, passage graves of Cromlech, Stonehenge. Similarly, if you come to Egypt, I will not tell you what pyramids are, but I will definitely tell you that there is one person who has given sufficient proof, if you have read a few of his books, that the pyramids are coincidentally or incidentally aligned with the stars. And then if you find hieroglyphs of aircrafts and other such objects which seem strange for the Egyptian civilization. So if the question arises that even today in modern times students are not well versed with the concepts of astronomy, how did the Egyptians know all this? So there might have been cases. So in order to incite interest, I just told you about the brief background. Questions have been asked from mastabas and some other cases, which I will explain. Second point, always I'm mentioning water plays a very important role. We all know the capital of Egypt is Cairo. So where is Cairo located? Just let's, even if I do make an educated guess, why am I making these guesses now? Because by the end of the seminar, you would at least be an expert in geography, slight expert. I'll tell you why. Logically, if you think, you will be. So Cairo must Egypt's a huge country. It can be located anywhere, right? But strangely, Cairo is located right at the mouth of the Mediterranean Sea because there's a lot of water. First of all, you have the Nile River, which flows from north to south. No, it flows from south to north because the landmass is higher in the Sudan area and lower in the Egyptian area, flows into the sea. So one second, Cairo being located to both the larger water bodies, it's a very strategic location for any civilization where the rest of the landmass is always desert. If you look at the banks of the Nile, we had studied right in our school days, the Egyptian civilization, Nile River played a huge role. But look at the agriculture pattern, very close to the river. After that, again starts deserts and deserts. Everything, anything close to the river, you will find Egyptian civilization traces. Cairo, Luxor, Karnak, everything, all the cities, all the major tourist attractions or archaeological evidences are near the river. So I'll go one by one. First, okay, we have the Al-Bahari temple. I have marked the Al-Bahari temple. I will definitely go through all of them. Pyramid of Djoser, Giza, Al-Bahari temple, mortuary. Okay, these are the areas where the monuments are located. The one I am showing you here in the image, this one is located right at the banks of the Nile. Okay, there are different temples which I have mentioned. You just have to remember the name and the ruins. I will also show you where they are located. They are located in Luxor. One I have already shown you. Valley of the Kings. It's a very famous place. Again, this is in Karnak. Karnak you will also find in Bannister Fletcher. I have gone through 25 books to compile that one PDF. So I've saved you the effort. But then, since I know where the famous places are located, I'm just running you through them. The temple of Karnak, this temple of Khons Karnak, this is exactly what Bannister Fletcher has sketched out. There are other important places in Karnak which I have again marked, and they are in the PDF. So you will find all these locations. You can later again go into Google Map and again scroll through and explore. It's all properly mentioned. There are mummies where the kings used to be born. So mummies are important not because they're Egyptian and they are the birthplaces of kings, but also because they are the points of reference for the development of the Doric order, the Doric column. When the Greeks developed the Doric column, they actually took inspiration from the mummies. So mummies are important. So it's all there. And the different important temples, and then again these pylons with the single the menhir or the single the single menhir here, the other part being in Paris. And yes, some other points again, if you come to if you extrapolate the concepts which you're learning here in contemporary to the modern, the concepts of farming and the kinds of questions that can be asked in gate architecture, you would always have questions here of these kinds of farming practices in Saudi Arabia. There's a high chance that questions might be asked from such concepts, but then these concepts would be later on discussed in later subjects. I've just taken a brief reference so that it's easy for you to recall when we do discuss. The temple of Abu Simbel, I've just given the blow up image of the aerial view. All right, that again completes Egypt because there's not much other than what I have mentioned in the PDF. We come to Greek civilization. Greeks, we have different parts, the largest and the longest being the Minoan civilization. Minoan civilization, there are some reference to architecture, but the major ones are from the archaic, classical, Hellenistic. Why have I marked Mycenaean in black? It is because it was a period of war and turmoil. So there's not much contribution then. Some, yes, but the most being the archaic, classical, and Hellenistic. Even if you do refer to the main philosophers during the Greek civilization, you would find Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and whatever they said, I'll mention what they said. It was all during the classical period, about 400 to 200 AD. So that was the period in which they operated, they preached. So Minoans might have come with references from Egypt, developed the Doric orders, etc. But the major growth was in the initial these phases, and I will tell you why.
It was also linked to some wars they had fought with the Persian Empire. I'll tell you in detail. The great civilizations start from the Greek civilization. Again, I have one video which I want to show you. This will set the foundation for the establishment of concrete, which we will again learn in construction. But how did concrete come about? Nobody told you. We know it came from the volcanic mountains, but how, you will have to know. And also, we know there was a Stone Age, there was the Bronze Age. What is the Bronze Age? Bronze is an alloy of copper and tin. Where did they get copper from? Who taught them to get copper? I have a video which proves how it was done. Okay, this is how you mine copper. This is copper ore. Copper is always green. Why? Copper oxide is brown, but then it takes up, it rusts. So when it rusts, it turns green. We call the greena patina. So if you burn copper in a smelter, it's like an earthen pit. You burn copper at 1000 degrees centigrade. 1000 degrees centigrade is just double the heat of your local tandoor. If you have tandoori roti or tandoori whatever, the tandoor burns at 500 degrees centigrade, 480 to be precise. That should be the ideal temperature. Copper melts at 1083, if I'm not wrong, 1085. Copper melts at 1085 degrees centigrade. This is just double the heat of tandoor. So it can easily be achieved. You make a pit, you burn coal, and then you get the final product mixed with copper. You wash away the soil. When you wash away the soil, he has just washed away the soil. You get traces of copper. There you go. He poured it, and then that is how you get copper. That's why in those times, whatever artifacts we have, we see some cracks, some lines, because if you are dealing with archaeologists, or if you talk with them, speak to them, sometimes you would know, okay, this is how it was produced, so obviously the product has some. I just proved to you how copper was made. Now you mix copper with tin, you get bronze. Bronze is a very, at least a stronger alloy than what they used to use with stones. So we call it the Bronze Age. Later on, we used copper on so many things. We also see the Statue of Liberty, New York, is green because it is made of copper. It was initially the copper color, but then took up a patina. So I've mentioned this. That is just for the background. The Minoans, 3000 BC to 1100, almost 2000 years of their existence. What did they contribute? Some contributions like colorful rooms and all, like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, which I have not specifically mentioned here. I'll mention later on. I've also, because, okay, one point I'd like to mention, when you guys study or research, always do a holistic research. When I was researching, I learned about copper. I wanted to find out where the copper mines in Europe are. So I have traced them out. So this is just for your knowledge. So if you now you know, okay, these guys could have fetched copper from these places and then used copper for their daily purposes. That basically completes Minoans, just the storyline, nothing else. Mycenaeans is the next phase, right? Mycenaeans, but this is the dark phase, not much. Okay, one difference between Minoans and Mycenaeans, Minoans also had their fortresses, but they were not guarded. They did not have a boundary wall, but the Mycenaeans did, because I just mentioned there were periods of war, a lot of war with the surrounding clans and the surrounding tribals, or whichever the empires were. So they need a boundary wall, a protective wall. When you study about Indian temple architecture, you will again find some temples are South India have a raised wall. That's where we get the term Gopuram from, cow gates, because they had a wall and they had a gate so that the enemies could not enter into their premises. So same concepts are repeated over and over again. History keeps on repeating itself. Let's move on to the Archaic period. I have marked the okay. Archaic period, it is expected that you have gone through the labels. Everything labeled here is important. Everything in the Archaic period, all the parts of the column, the entablature, the pediment, the meteops, triglyphs, etc. Everything is important. How did the meteops and triglyphs come about? Some old students would know, some new students I'll just mention. You have the column and beam structure. So you have these long stones which are coming out as beams, and when they are protruding out of the facade, they look so plain and like inanimated, just plain nothing. So they use 3 lines. That is called the triglyph, 3 lines. And then in between the 3 lines, they had these figurines and the artwork. So it gave an animated character to the otherwise blank facade. So that is where you get triglyphs and meteors from. Moving on, whenever you find pictures of Fletcher, you must read that. Okay, they also use the concept of entasis, where for higher columns they actually bloated the central part so that the perspective correction could have been used. I actually have a very in-depth study of entablature, but then it can't be explained today. It is beyond context. Some of the artistic impressions, Archaic period, just the contributions I've just mentioned. Moving on to the classical period, you just have to remember one person, specifically hippopotamus questions have been asked, and the Acropolis. Now Acropolis was the capital of the business center or the town center for the Greeks. They had the Parthenon, they had all the important temples, the important chambers, the king's chamber or whatever, the minister's chambers there. And there were two cities, very important cities, Athene or Athens, where the Acropolis was located, and Piraeus, which was the dock capital. They had all the ships and the merchandise used to dock here, and then trade used to carry on through this particular route. It is also said they had large walls so as to prevent invasions from both sides, so that the merchant route or the business route used to carry on without any hindrances, and the armies used to take care of the border areas. Okay, this is the facade of the Parthenon. Here it has already broken down, but then if you want to take a look at the facade, the details are here. The labels are there up above, which I have already asked you to remember by heart, because simply you're just they are gonna pick up sections and ask you questions in the gate exam. Questions also I have placed on the side using red markers. I hope you're keeping a track of it. Golden ratios, etc. I had asked all of you to at least go through the PDF. These are very simple things you can easily remember. Again, I'll come back to a story which is very important. There was a Peloponnesian war between Greeks and the Persians. On the Greek side, you had most of you must have seen the movie 300, which has the Spartans, which depicts the Spartans. So it was a war between Greeks and Athens on one side and Sparta on the other side. And no, there was Greek, Spartans, Athens on the three parties on one side. There was some other party on the other side. Now what happened was, one of the allies of the Greeks actually betrayed them and went and joined hands with the enemies. And the end result of the war was the betrayers actually got defeated. So the Greeks killed off all the men, subjugated all the women, enslaved them, and made them their servants for the rest of their lives as punishment for betrayal of their men who were no longer alive. But the artists and the craftsmen of the Greek civilization, they said, we'll teach them a lesson which they will never forget. How? They made a temple, Erection, for one of their goddesses, and on one side of the temple they carved out these women statues carrying the load of the temple, and they said, okay, this is the load of the sin on their head, and this load they are going to carry for the rest of their life, which might even span 5,000 years. And it still stands today as a testament to punishment which they received for betraying the Greeks. So that is how they used to carry out their artwork in tandem with their daily affairs. So this is a very important examples. Caryatids. And what was the masculine? The masculine version of this is called the telamon, which we find in other examples, which have been asked in the GATE exam. I'll mention when I come across those questions once. Some other parts, Agora, it was a marketplace. Stoa, it was a long corridor hall. They also used to have the cavalries during war stored there on war nights. Propelia was the forum or the porch areas. Different types of structures or spaces. Questions have been asked of what is the meaning of this, etc. So I've just mentioned them here. That more or less brings us to the midway of Greek civilization. Agree. The Tuscan, okay, the different kinds of orders questions have been asked. I have marked the important parts of the city layouts, and also all the 5 orders are placed here. So obviously you must have gone through the 5 orders: Doric, Ionic, Corinthian, Composite, and Tuscan. Okay, so I have already referred to an inspiration for Doric from the Egyptian mummies. Now I will refer to an inspiration for the Corinthian columns. There is actually a place called Corinth. I think I have marked it out here somewhere. Just let me find out. Corinth. Anyways, I'll show you where it is. I need not search for it. I know where it is. So that province is called Corinth, and there a temple was made for the first time. So it is known as the Corinthian style of, I think this is the one I'm looking for. Yes, it is in the Corinth province in Bassae. It is a temple dedicated to the Hellenistic period. Yes, the temple of Apollo, dedicated to Apollo, the sun god, in Bassae. And this is where we find the first reference of the Corinthian column. So it is in the Hellenistic period. You see, the best period for the Greeks was the Hellenistic period, when they had the maximum growth. Also because they defeated all the enemies, there were no wars, complete 400 years of peace. So they did a lot of they experience a lot of growth in terms of culture, art, architecture, etc. One aspect of art we must remember is the contrapposto, which means you're looking somewhere and facing. It's a kind of a pose that they came up with and was widely used in all of the Greek sculptures.
Before we move on to the next section, I'd like to draw your attention to the achievements of two of my students at least. There are many, but I'll take two examples. One is Lakshana. She was from the south. She was from Tamil Nadu. She was very fluent in Tamil. I don't understand Tamil. I'm okay with English, so we used to speak in English. She used to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning. I used to wake up at 4:30. Our training started at 5 because I had my office. She had a college. 2 hours of training. Then we all went our ways. She had one other friend. Her other friend quit midway because she did not trust the process, especially because there are so many institutes who are trying to professionalize the entire process, charging a hefty sum, especially also because I am charging 1 rupee from many students. It doesn't matter, I am not doing it for the money, but the passion, because I do not want anybody to go through the same hardships that I have gone through. So I simply don't charge them. If I have a good relation or good experience speaking to them, they can just study. So today Lakshana has cracked the GATE exam. She is in Delhi SPA BM, which requires a very good rank for admissions, and she's basically following the path of success which I had taken. So it's 100% she's going to succeed in future as well. The other student that I can proudly mention is Jeet, because he had received 55% overall marks for his 5 years of architecture. Now, he was systematically devastated, demotivated, destroyed by his administration because they did not like him. He was certain kind. So when he came to me, I wanted to understand his problems. I did not reject him because he was 55%. I welcomed him because that is the kind of students I want, because that is where I can motivate them and make them achieve 100%. That is what motivates me. There are many students from whom I charge 1 rupees. I am proud to declare that for the entire training that I give. I do not have any other hidden conditions as well. So Jeet is one of those. When the admission results came out after his GATE exam, he rejected offers from the NIT. He said, I won't go to NITs. I only want to go to SPSEPT and pursue the best fields, the best careers that are in store for me. So he's going to reapply, and definitely he's going to get it this time, I'm very sure. So from 55%, he made it to 95%. Next year, wait for it, he's going to come to 99.9%. That is my guarantee.
Come to the Roman Empire. Before I come to the Roman Empire, I'll have to lay the foundations for the Roman Empire. So the Greeks were in power in that region. The Romans also were developing as a civilization. Initially, there was peace. They are developing, these people are developing. Now they experienced 4 Macedonian wars. We call them the Macedonian wars because there's a part in here. Okay, I have a map. Just a second. I think I have a map. I'll show you where exactly Macedonia was. Can't find it. Anyways, it's on the northern part of Greece. They fought 4 wars with the Macedonians, and there were the civilizations here. They also fought 2 wars with them, and finally they defeated all the Greeks and they ransacked their cities. They burnt it. They also burnt Corinth. The last day on Corinth. Remember Corinthian, the province here in this part of Greece. They burned down the entire city, destroyed everything. They wiped out the civilization on the last war, so that the Greeks were completely wiped out. And then we have an undisputed champion in this region called the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire will span, and the reference to Roman Empire will span for a long time. The reference to Romans will span for an even longer time. So be with us. You will know how the Romans actually gained power and how they established a very strong reference for the civilization. Some examples of Roman literature, references to Roman literature, Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. Okay, this is the image I was searching for. We have Macedonia, we have the Seleucid kingdom. They all fought. This is the second Macedonian war, right? Yes. You do not have to remember any war, anything. It is just for reference that I'm giving you these points so that it's easier for you to learn and remember so many other aspects of architecture. Vitruvius was a very important character in the Roman civilization. He has written 10 books on architecture. I'll come back to the reference of Vitruvius when I teach you Romanesque. This book will be very important as a reference point then. Now you might find it very silly, but then it is very important. This is also same question asked in the GATE exam, questions asked in the GATE exam. Every single labels, You will have to, in the second class of contemporary, I'll mention in detail what labels you have to remember, because I want to make it more like a story or a good webinar. I'm not getting into the nuances of the question and answers, but I'm just giving you the storyline. The kind of concrete they used to make, there was a component called tobermorite, which actually made concretes withstand the harsh salt environment of the sea, and that's why we have many structures which are slightly submerged under the sea now, but the concrete structures are still standing from the Roman times. Modern day concrete structures are very weak. When I discuss construction, I will tell you how we protect our bridges from salt water. We have so many bridges over the seas, but they are protected not by tobermorite, but by a different technique. That's a modern technique. But as a point of reference, you must know, because tomorrow you might be applying to BM or you might be applying to urban design or whatever. But as points of reference, if you know this, they give an advantage of knowledge over the other candidates, given that you have a good rank. Okay, one important building, Rome Pantheon, you have to remember, most of you know this, so I'm not getting into details of this. It's a huge dome with a cutout on the top, so as to be able to balance the center of gravity. We have the coffers, which are structurally important to make the structure sound and also very lightweight, because it takes off a lot of weight from the dome. And the concrete, and the concrete I'll discuss anyways in construction, because this picture takes me 15 minutes to explain, so I'm not wasting time on contemporary explaining construction concrete. You just have to remember the name and the image, that's all, nothing else. Okay, now another important building in the Roman civilization was the Colosseum, but I need to take you there. I need to take you to the map, because otherwise it becomes very difficult. Okay. So now we are looking at Rome. This is the city of Rome. Now if I zoom in, you would find this is the Colosseum. Just imagine, suppose we are on a virtual to Rome, right? You go to visit the Colosseum first. Right next to it, you find the Arch of Constantine. They call it Constantino in their language. Basilicas, etc. will come to in Byzantine. When I discuss Byzantine, I'll teach you all these basilicas. But then what else do we have? We have the Arch of Septimus Severus. So Septimo Severo is their language. This is Arch of Septimus Severus. It's actually on an axis. Now you have to draw imagine the axis now. This is a straight line which passes right through the main axis of the Colosseum ellipse. It's in the form of an ellipse. The main axis, the major axis of the ellipse, and does go straight, but there's a slight curvature. Okay, it does not go as much straight as in Paris, but in Rome it's slightly curved. And then you also have, okay, this building I'll explain. This is a very important building. You reach this monument to the fatherland. Now I'll explain to you also what fatherland is. They call it the monument to the fatherland. And now here you find the Trajan's column, and then the ruins of Pompeii. I have it in the next few slides. Okay, yeah, it was the ruins of Pompeii. So now the ruins of Pompeii also, you just have to remember once that it was a very important destination in ancient Rome. And right next to it, they have dedicated a monument to their fatherland. Why is it called a fatherland? When I looked up the differences, we call India our motherland, and they call their country our fatherland. Because the difference which I found was, if your national anthem refers to your country as a masculine gender, you call your country a fatherland. And because we refer to our country as Mata or a feminine gender, we call her a motherland. That is the basic difference. Basically, it's a monument dedicated to their country. So if you go to Rome, you will definitely be visiting these places. The Trajan's column is the only column which is remaining in Pompeii now, in the ruins of Pompeii. Again, you have the Arch of Septimus Severus, the columns, the Trajan's column in the background. And this is just another view of the same location. So I have already pasted these images for your reference in the PDF. The Romans also had public baths. And when you're speaking of Rome and Italy, it would be unwise to mention the Bond movies, because many Bond movies, I think more than 7 Bond movies have been shot some parts of Italy. So the recent one being in Matera. So when you find Bond jumping over the ramp and onto the porch which leads out of the church, it is actually in Matera. It's a beautiful city in Italy. So I hope that is how you get the reference for Italy and why Italy holds a very prominent point of anchor point when it comes to ancient architecture or civilization architecture?
For the other subjects which are mostly mathematical or based on calculations, I have my own methods. For example, I have a method in mechanics which is completely non-scientific. Nobody knows that method other than me and the people I have taught. And if you follow the non-scientific process, you will get 100% in mechanics in GATE examination. If you follow a scientific process, basically it's such a long process that it's going to take up a lot of your time, or you have to memorize so many formulae. Non-scientific process, you need literally just memorize 2 or 3 diagrams and that's it. So there are many such examples where I have actually brought up my own techniques into learning, which are very competitive and which reduce the amount of time you need to invest to get a good rank. For the fee structure, we would be charging students, I think, 53 rupees 81 paise or something around that figure per week per subject. Maths is also one of the subjects. I would be taking up maths, and I would take up all the 30 chapters in mathematics. So you have a very good aptitude when you sit for your GATE exams. I would be putting phone numbers and descriptions of people you can get in touch with if you have queries, and if you want to register yourself. There's a very small registration fee for any newcomer, and if you do a registration fee, you can do the Contemporary 2 module with us, where we discuss modern, postmodern and everything that has to do with the remaining part of the contemporary that has not been presented to you in this video. And after that, if you like our presentation, our style of training, then you can carry on forward with us and we can continue till the GATE examination and ensure that you get an excellent rank in your exams. We'll end with the video with the final presentation on Istanbul and a small presentation on the other subjects like construction, mechanics, acoustics, valuation, etc. at the very end of the video. See you soon.
Constantine was himself based in Constantinople, present day Istanbul, capital of Turkey, right? And then they started preaching Christianity to other parts of the Islamic world. Now, since he was located in Constantinople, he said, we'll dedicate a very important structure to the Christian cause or the Christian religion. But because we are located so closely and in the heart of the current Islamic Islamic empire, or whatever you can call that, we will have to be very careful with the kind of buildings that we design. So they took references from existing mosques and Islamic architecture, and then they made something that resembles a mosque but is used as a church. That the prime example of that being Hagia Sophia. I will have to show you where Hagia Sophia is and how it has been positioned. Okay, this is Hagia Sophia. This is in Istanbul, and here you find a water body. Now, water body is anyways Turkey is surrounded by the Mediterranean Sea and so many other water bodies. But why do I focus on this single point? There are 2 reasons. First, I'll draw the reference, and then I think this was the movie Skyfall, where James Bond was driving. What was it? Casino Royale or Skyfall? Casino Royale. Which one? I'm forgetting. Either of the 2. So there was a place in Istanbul called the Grand Bazaar, and this is where the movie was shot. And beyond that, you can see the camera slowly pans up to the Hagia Sophia. That's the exact scene of the movie. Now that the context is set, I would like to draw your attention to 2 or 3 different facts from history. There are 2 other important monuments in Istanbul which in relation to the Islamic architecture: the Shahzadeh Mosque and the Suleymania Mosque, which are anyways mentioned in the PDF. But this point here, right here, is a very important trade route for the entire European and the parts of the Asian continent. Why? Because see, the entire Europe, if you have to carry something easily over water and take it to Asia, how would you go? You would go across Africa and enter through India, or you would just cross the Mediterranean. Even if you are coming from France or Spain or wherever, Italy also, you would just cross over, come through Turkey, Istanbul, because it's anyways a power center in their time, and cross the Bosphorus Strait. This is a very narrow piece of water. It's called a strait. Now, now 2 other points, 2 other things, because I told you I want to make you good in geography also. There are other straits on Earth. One being the Suez Canal, where they have actually cut into they've connected the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea using an artificial human-made canal. So all ships pass through this canal, saving, I think, almost 1 month of journey, because they pay a small tariff and they do not have to go across Africa and get to Europe. They can just cross that narrow strait of water. Again, Panama Canal you have somewhere here. You just cross, yeah, there is Panama. You have Panama Canal here, where you just cross this small landmass here using an artificial stretch of water which has been dug into the land there, and that's why you have the Panama. It's a very famous crossing point between the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. Similarly, in the old days, in their civilization, they used to have the Bosphorus Strait. This is a natural water body, by the way. This is not artificial. Okay, so it was located right at the mouth of the Bosphorus Strait, and whichever ship used to pass by, they obviously there were not so many buildings that they always used to catch a glimpse of the Hagia Sophia. So it incites curiosity in the local dwellers and the merchants, etc., as to what this huge structure, huge building is. So when you go enter, they start preaching Christianity. So that's how they preach their religion, bring out their cause. So that is why location and the design of the building is very important. The building has been transformed over time, and it has also changed its purpose. Initially it was a church, then the Ottomans captured and converted it into a mosque. Then after World War I, so I've already mentioned this in the timeline. Initially it was a church here, then it was captured by the Ottomans and converted to a mosque. After World War I, the Turks decided we'll make it a museum, be neutral with it. We won't make it a mosque or a church. No fighting over it. And very recently, it has again been converted back to a mosque. I think 2020 or 2019. So these are the 4 phases of the Hagia Sophia. 2 other points where questions can be asked are the pendentives and squinches, which are very common questions in the GATE exam. If you have a square base or an arch base, and you have a dome on top, the infills are called the pendentives. If you have a square base and if you have a dome on top, the infills from the interior side are called the squinches.
You would find the videos of loads of other students whom I have taught linked in the description or put up somewhere down above or below. You can go through them, it will help you motivate yourself. There are so many examples of people who have studied for 10 days. 10 days and they have cracked into SEPT. Through the GATE exam, not bluffing. Now after they cracked, I asked them, how could you crack in 10 days? I myself could not do it. How did you do it? They said, what you taught us in contemporary architecture, the knowledge and the sequence and the stories which you told us, stuck to our memories for such a long time. And when we narrated the same stories to the admission committee in these colleges, they said, just come over. We don't care what rank you have, whatever, even if it's beyond 2000 rank, which was the case. They said, just come study with us. So that is what stories and narrations and motivation can do to you.
Very long section, contemporary does take a lot of, especially the kind of depth to which I go. If I discuss contemporary without showing the maps, I'm doing injustice to contemporary. Second, there are some people are worried about the other parts of the GATE exam, like construction mechanics and valuation, etc. So these are some of the examples of other parts of the GATE materials which we will share with you. Everything will be marked out, in which even if you look at the IS codes, I will mark out certain portions of IS codes which you have to go through. IS codes, environmental codes, different parts of construction, septic tank processes, theories, numericals, question papers, etc. would be marked out. Everything would be given to you. Everything would be spoon fed to you if you give me the opportunity to guide you. Even when it comes to mechanics, this is the depth. This is a very, very, very tough sum. This sum would actually take you 20 minutes to solve in the GATE exam. So the best thing to do is not to solve this particular sum in the GATE exam. That identification also takes mastery over the subject, so as to be able to know that I must leave this question, otherwise I am doomed. Some questions are trap questions. This is a trap question. But even if you do solve a trap question in class or like homework, this was somebody's query, not even class discussion. So I was traveling, so I made 2 pages of written notes, and this is how we discussed the sums and numericals in the exam. Everyone can go and take a screenshot of this page. It has all the valuation formulae, but I can guarantee it would do you no good, because unless it is explained to you, you wouldn't be able to make head and tail of what it is. I do valuation on a professional basis. I am not into core architecture. So these things are on my fingertips. But for other students, take as many screenshots you want. It doesn't matter. Without guidance, nobody can crack. But at least you'll have the formula. And all valuations question in the GATE exam are only formula. No extra effort required. Just concept and formula. whichever you go, come to acoustics, you get acoustics materials with this, even this particular formula you learn by heart, magita, or you understand and remember. There are two different approaches. So I always want my students to understand and remember, not mug up without understanding. And you have to develop a level of mastery. Project management, I am myself BM. Without anybody other than BM cannot explain to you these things in details, is an open challenge, unless they have studied or they have a deep interest in BM. Second, Subhajit is going to take up urban studies, parts of landscape. So these are some of the glimpses of urban studies and landscape, which obviously I will not be able to explain today because it is a huge subject. That is why we have